Hi, today we're going to talk about least common multiples in our lesson. We are going to start with a couple of definitions. So, a multiple is a number that multiplies multiple times. So if I take a number and I skip count with it, or I multiply it times 1, multiply it times 2, multiply it times 3, that is a multiple. So the examples I gave right here, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, are all multiples of 2. However, if I have like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, those are all multiples of 5. The least common multiple is the lowest multiple, the common multiple with the lowest value between two numbers. So, we're going to go over two easy ways to do least common multiple. We're going to first start with the first way, which is a way you've probably done it your whole life, is you just list the multiples. So with 6 and 8, they just listed the multiples. Just a minute. Okay, sorry about that. So with 6 and 8, they just listed the multiples. So 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, they just basically listed the multiples. And the same with 8, 8, 16, 24, 32, and 48. So 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24, 8 times 4 is 32, 8 times 5 is 40, 8 times 6 is 48. That's the idea of multiples. When I'm looking at my list of multiples, I see two numbers that they both have. They both have a 24. They also both have a 48. Now I have to think, I'm looking for my least common multiple, and least means the smallest. So, which is smaller, 24 or 48? Well, in this case, it is 24. Let's do another example. This one right here, I have 6 and 8, and we're doing it a different way. This way right here, we are doing it with prime factorization. So I'm going to do 6, and 6 is 2 times 3. And 8 is 2 times 4, but 4 is 2 times 3. Now what I have to do is I have to, the way they do it in the book and the way I do it are a little different, but they're very similar too. What they do is they say, okay, I see 2 and I see 3 2s. I'm going to take the 3 2s, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put them here. 2 times 2 times 2. I see 1, 3 right here. I'm going to put that 1, 3 right here. And I am going to multiply those together. So 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. 6 times 4 equals 24. So that would be my least common multiple. The way I do it is I'll do the prime factorization, and then I'll say, okay, I have a 2. So I'm going to write down a 2. I have another 2. I'm going to circle it, and I'm going to write it down. I have another 2. Circle it, write it down. And I have a 3. I'm going to circle it and write it down. Notice when I did my first 2, they both have a 2 in it. And I circled both of them, and I wrote it down one time. That is because I don't want to use every single factor. If they're common factors, I only want to include them one time. So now I've got the same exact factors. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. 4 times 6 equals 24. So it works this way too. And this is probably the way I'm going to be using it throughout the lesson. So we're going to do a few examples, actually a lot of examples. We're going to start with 6 and 7. So when I prime factorize 6, 6 is 2 times 3. And when I prime factorize 7, 7 is 1 and 7, right? So now I'm looking and I'm like, okay, well, this one has a 2, so I'm going to put it down here. This one has a 3, so I'm going to put it down here. This one has a 1, but I'm not going to worry about it because anything times 1 is itself, but this one does have a 7, so I'm going to circle it, and I'm going to move it down here. 2 times 3 is 6, times 7 equals 42. So my least common multiple of 6 and 7 is 42. Let's do number 2. Number 2 is 4 and 5. So I have 4 and I have 5. 4 is 2 times 2, and 5 is 1 times 5. A lot of times, if you have a prime number like this, you're going to just multiply them together, but not all the time. And I know some of you are probably even seeing that as a pattern. However, as I said, it does not work every time. So do not rely on that method because it's not always a good method to use because it's not always accurate. Okay, this one has a 2. I'm going to put it down here. This one has a 2. I'm going to put it down here. This one has a 5. I'm going to put it down here. 2 times 2 is 4 times 5 equals 20. Now let's look at another one. If I have 10 and 11, I'm going to do 10 here and 11 here. 11 is prime, so that's 1 times 11. 10 is not a prime, so that's 2 times 5. And so now I'm going to take each of the individual factors. So this has 2. I'm going to put it down here. This has 5. I'm going to put it down here. This has 11. I'm going to put it right here. 2 times 5 is 10, and 10 times 11 equals 110. I am going to skip a couple of these, but I'm going to jump to number 8 because 8 does not have a prime factor. Or number 6, sorry, right here, 6. So I have 8 and I have 10. So 10 is 2 times 5. And 8 is 2 times 4, but 4 is not prime, so I've got to do 2 times 2. Now I have to find factors. The first thing I do is I look for any common factors. So this 2 and this 2 are common. I'm going to circle them both, but I'm going to write them one time. Then this 2 right here. There's not another 2 over here, so I'm going to put it here. There's this 2 right here. I'm going to bring it down here. And there's this 5 right here, and I'm going to put it right here. So now I have 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 5 is 10. 4 times 10 equals 40. This is one of those instances where you can't just multiply it and get the least common multiple, because if I multiplied 8 times 10, I would have 80, and that does not work with this scenario. Now, let's look at number 7. 7 has 3, and it has 10. 3 is 1 times 3. 10 is 2 times 5. Well, I'm going to take 3 and put it down here. I'm going to put 2 and put it right here. And I'm going to take 5 and put it right here. 3 times 2 is 6 times 5 equals 30. So I found that one's greatest common multiple. Let's look at number 8. With 8, I have 5 and I have 10. And this is one of those instances where I do have a prime number. 5 is a prime number. 5 is 1 times 5. And 10 is 2 times 5. Okay? I don't just multiply 5 times 10 and get the answer in this case, because 5 times 10 is 50, and that does not work. I'm going to first circle my common factors. So they both have this 5 and this 5. So I'm going to put 5. This one has a 2, so I'm going to put 2. 5 times 2 equals 10. 10 is my greatest common factor of 5 and 10. Let's look at number 9. 9 has 7 and 9 has 8. 8 is 2 times 4, and 4 is 2 times 2. 7 is 1 times 7. Take each of my factors because I don't have anything common. So I have 7, I have 2, I have 2, and I have 2. 7 times 2 is 14. 2 times 2 is 4. 14 times 4, I can't do it off the top of my head. I should be able to. 16. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5, equals 56. 56 is my least common multiple of 7 and 8. Now let's go to a word problem. This is the fun part, I think. I'm on number 10. If you know the LCM of 4 and 5, how could you find the LCM of 40 and 50. What do you think? Let's try this. If I take my pen and I say, okay, I'm going to do 4 and 5 in red. 4 is 2 times 2. 5 is 1 times 5. So 2 times 2 times 5 is 4 times 5, which equals 20. Now let's look at 40 and 50. This is a little trickier because it's 4 times 10 and 5 times 10. So if I'm going to do 40 and I'm going to do 50, I need to change my color, so I am going to change it to green. 40 and 50. Okay, 40 is 4 times 10, and 50 is 5 times 10. Well, I'm looking over here. I've got 4 is 2 times 2, and 10 is 2 times 5. Right here, I've got 5, and then I've got 10, which is 2 times 5. Now I have to find my common multiple, so I'm going to switch my color to purple, and I'm going to say, okay, I see they both have a 2, so I'm going to mark a 2 right here. They both have a 5. I'm going to mark that 5 right here. Now I see an extra 2. I'm going to circle it and mark it. Circle it and mark this 2. And I have an extra 5. I have to include all of my prime factors. So now I have 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 5 is 10. 10, let me see. I'll just do 10 times 2 is 20. 20 times 10 equals 200. So what did I do? When I'm looking at my answers here, I am looking at 20. I am looking at 200. And I'm looking at 4, and it's just 4 times 10 is 40. 5 times 10 is 50. Well, 20 times 10 is 200. So I have to multiply 40, and I have to multiply my least common multiple of 4 and 5 by 10, just like I did 4 times 10 and 5 times 10. That's kind of a tricky one. Sometimes when you have problems like this, you have to do the work to figure out what the solution is. I think we have one more problem. Peter says the least common multiple of 4 and 6 is 24. Do you agree or disagree? So what Peter did is he took that trick that I told you at the beginning that a lot of people will say, you just multiply them and you get the least common multiple. But that doesn't always work. And this is a perfect example. What Peter did is he did 4 times 6 is 24. But if I do my prime factorizations, 4 is 2 times 2, and 6 is 2 times 3. First thing I have to do is I have to circle my common factors. They both have a 2. I'm going to circle both 2's, and I'm going to write it one time. Then I'm going to write down this 2, and I'm going to write down this 3. 2 times 2 is 4 times 3 is 12. The least common multiple for 4 and 6 is actually 12. It is not 24. That is one of those perfect examples of why, even though people tell you all the time, and people have even come up to you and said, guess what, Mrs. Herman? I figured out this really cool trick. I can just multiply them and get the least common multiple. And that does not work all the time. In fact, most of the time, that does not work. Some of the time, when you have a prime factor, it works. Or a prime number, it works. But it doesn't even always work with a prime number, as we saw back. I got too excited. Back a couple of slides ago. So you have to make sure you're really solving the problem and checking to see what the least common multiple really is. It doesn't take a lot of time to think, what do I multiply to get this number? Especially when you have a multiplication chart on your desk. I want you to do your best on these assignments. I don't want you just to guess and think you're doing this magic trick. Because as I showed you just right now even, that magic trick does not always work. Good luck on your assignment, and I'll see ya.